Tonight on Reporting Scotland, the SNP calls for a delay to the UK leaving the European Union as Boris Johnson attacks the Prime Minister's Brexit strategy. Tributes are paid to this 14-year-old boy who died at a reservoir near Paisley. Glasgow Caledonian University sacks a Catholic chaplain for holding a service to atone for the Gay Pride celebration. Help is offered to people on private water supplies whose springs are drying up because of the warm weather. And online video killed the TV star, how our viewing habits are shifting from broadcast television to streaming services.
Being able to binge watch seasons and stuff like that, that's really pulling people away from like scheduled programming.
It is a lot better platform to watch online than watch on a TV.
Good evening. The SNP has called for the date for Britain's exit from the EU to be delayed amid continuing divisions in the Conservative Party. This afternoon, the former Foreign Secretary Boris Johnson attacked the Prime Minister's Brexit proposals in his resignation speech. Here's our political correspondent, Nick Herdley.
Sunny summer afternoons, calm, relaxing, the opposite of what's going on in here, where things have been rather tense this week. Today it was this man, the former Foreign Secretary, launching a full-throttle attack on the Prime Minister's Brexit vision.
We are volunteering for economic vassalage, not just in goods and agri-foods, but we will be forced to match EU arrangements on the environment and social affairs and much else besides.
He believes the PM's plan would mean Brexit in name only, but
it is not too late to save Brexit.
Just behind Mr Johnson, nodding, is the Scottish Tory MP Ross Thompson. The party's deputy leader in Scotland, though, less than impressed. He stumbled through generalities and sat down a busted flush, time to back Theresa May and deliver the Chequers Agreement. As Boris Johnson spoke in the Commons, the PM faced a grilling from the chairs of Commons committees.
You're a survivor, Prime Minister. I often think of Gloria Gaynor when I look at you. You're doing well. The can kicking down the road has been a successful policy, really.
I will survive, hopes Theresa May, but she's feeling the heat this week, and others are too. MPs just aren't sure about where things are going, but some are worried.
We cannot crash out of the EU without a deal. We need to think of the next generation who will pay a price for this folly. They will see lost opportunities and lost jobs. Did the Prime Minister come into Parliament to have this as her legacy? Will she now face up to the reality and extend Article 50?
The PM says she's already started negotiating her proposal in Brussels.
But can I say to him also, he talks about putting a political party's interest before that of the country. I think the SNP should really think about what they are doing when they promote the independence of Scotland, which is clearly against the interests of their country.
So what happens next? Well, the government has averted major crisis this week by getting through votes in Parliament, but be under no illusion. Many are still extremely unhappy with what she has planned, and after 2 years of intense debate, neither side is willing to throw the towel in yet. The crucial debate over our future relationship with the EU goes on and on. Nick Herdley reporting Scotland, Westminster.
Well, let's go back to Westminster and join our political correspondent David Porter. David, as we've heard, Mrs May's been meeting Conservative backbenchers. Does she still have their support?
Well, Jackie, as Theresa May is rapidly learning, when it comes to Brexit, not everything quite goes according to plan. She turned up this afternoon to the meeting of the 1922 committee, the Tory backbenchers, and they made her wait outside the room for a few minutes. She was forced to make small talk with we journalists, and of course we wanted to know whether she'd seen Boris Johnson's resignation speech, what she thought about it. She said rather testily she'd been otherwise engaged. But when she did get into the room, they gave her a rapturous reception, the traditional banging of desks. But she knows that whatever they may do and say publicly to her face, that the two sides of her party are split right down the middle on Brexit. The Remainers and the Leavers do not see eye to eye at all. They have been flexing their muscles this week, and they show every sign that they will continue to do that. She knows that it is not going to stop, and she knows that there are lots of tough times ahead.
Yes, indeed, Dave, because there is the break next week, the summer break, but there are still some difficult moments ahead.
Yes, there are. She had hoped she could get rid of MPs from Westminster this week. She floated that idea. It did not fly, so MPs will be here till next week. They will then go back to their constituencies, and the government is dearly hoping that things will calm down a bit. But she has to get her plans, her white paper, the so-called Chequers Agreement. It's got to be considered by the EU itself. They may reject it, they may want big changes. Lots of hard negotiation will take place there. Then have a situation where she's got the party conferences. That will show any divisions in the open, and then she has some legislation that she's got to get through. It is going to continue. It is going to be very difficult. At times this week it is felt the government is getting through day by day. And I'll leave you with one thought. Tonight, Theresa May is hosting a drinks reception for we parliamentary journalists. I bet she's looking forward to that.
I bet. David, thank you. Tributes have been paid to a 14-year-old boy whose body was recovered from a reservoir in Renfrewshire. Emergency services began a search yesterday evening after the alarm was raised at the Glenburn Reservoir in Paisley. The boy has been named as Ben Thompson, who was from the Glenburn area. Aileen Clark reports.
Glenburn Reservoir near Glenifer Braes in Paisley. A quiet spot up a steep track, away from houses or neighbours. Much sadness here today, as flowers were laid to remember 14-year-old Ben Thompson, who lost his life yesterday. Friends say Ben jumped into the water around 5:30 yesterday afternoon, and very quickly they knew he was in difficulty. A man fishing at the reservoir helped them raise the alarm. 2.5 hours later, emergency services, including police and fire brigade, recovered his body. With the good weather this summer, locals say this has been a popular place with local teenagers and youths.
I do know that obviously because of the hot weather, it was obviously somewhere to go to cool down and, you know, to swim. You know, it's just so tragic, so tragic. Where we understand the young fella has drowned, there's actually a 40-foot drop there.
Ben's head teacher from Glenifer High School paid tribute to him today. Ben was a well-liked, friendly and very caring pupil, she said, who always greeted you in the corridor. As well as succeeding in academic subjects, Ben was also a very talented young footballer. Ben comes from a very loving and close family, she said, and our thoughts and prayers are with his parents and sister at this very sad time. Scottish Water manage the reservoir and say they will assist in any way they can with the investigation into the circumstances of Ben's death. But amongst those most shocked by what happened here yesterday are the two friends who were here with Ben. I spoke to the mother of one of the other young boys who was here yesterday when this happened. Now, she was upset and understandably didn't want to go on camera, but she said it could have been any of the boys who died here yesterday, and she hoped this would serve as a warning to others about just how dangerous playing by the water can be. Aileen Clark, reporting Scotland, Paisley.
2 teenagers have been injured after falling around 25 feet from cliffs in North Berwick. One of the boys, who's 16, was knocked unconscious and sustained serious head injuries and had to be airlifted to hospital. His 17-year-old friend, who tried to help him, also suffered serious wounds to his arm and shoulder. Police say because of the location of the fall and the condition of the teenager with head injuries, it took around 2 hours to get him to hospital by helicopter. The head of news and current affairs at BBC Scotland has been criticised by the judge in Sir Cliff Richard's privacy case against the corporation. Mr Justice Mann said in his previous role as the BBC's home news editor, Gary Smith had been obsessed with wanting to scoop news rivals when the story broke, and that probably affected some of his judgment. The judge described him as being unduly defensive and to some degree evasive when giving evidence during the case. The director of BBC Scotland says he has her full confidence.
I do believe that the journalists and Gary Smith and others made the best decisions at the time. I think they acted in good faith according to the law at the time, and such, you know, that would be my position on it.
A Roman Catholic priest has been removed as a university chaplain after he held a service to atone for what he described as the gross offence of a gay pride celebration held in Glasgow last weekend. In a statement, Glasgow Caledonian University said the views of Father Mark Morris were the opposite of those held by the university. Well, our education correspondent Jamie McIver is at the university for us tonight. So what exactly did the priest do, Jamie?
Well, Jackie, Father Mark Morris is a parish priest in the north of Glasgow, and he was also the Roman Catholic chaplain here at Glasgow Caledonian University. Now, on Saturday, the annual Gay Pride celebration took place in Glasgow. It was led by the First Minister, Nicola Sturgeon, and many mainstream businesses and organisations showed their support, including Glasgow Caledonian, which sees taking part in the event as a way to reach out to prospective students and their families. Then on Monday, Father Morris held a service at his church, and according to his church's website, it was a rosary of reparation for the gross offence to God, which is Pride Glasgow. Now, the university, to stress, had no association whatsoever with the service. It didn't take place here on the campus, but at his own church. But when it came to their attention, they were very disappointed, and they stressed they had a strongly inclusive culture here and actively respected and promoted equality and diversity. Now, we've been speaking to the Catholic Church as well. They made the point earlier that this was a private parish devotion which was unrelated to Father Morris's role as a chaplain here, while Father Morris himself isn't doing interviews. Now, Glasgow Caledonian, like other universities, has a number of chaplains representing the different faith communities, and the university is going to be talking to the Archdiocese of Glasgow to ensure that appropriate chaplaincy support for staff and students here continues.
Thank you very much, Jamie. From today, expectant mums in Murray who face a risk of health complications will have to give birth in Inverness or Aberdeen. It's prompted outrage in the community and a campaign of opposition. But NHS Grampian says it's been forced to introduce the year-long restriction due to a recruitment crisis at Dr Gray's Hospital in Elgin. Andrew Thompson reports.
This is one of the latest babies to be born at Dr Gray's, but over the next few months this won't be such a common sight. For the next year, higher risk pregnant women will have to travel through to Aberdeen or Inverness, while NHS Grampian looks at ways to overcome a recruitment crisis. And the downgrading is causing real concern among mums-to-be.
It's quite nerve-wracking, especially thinking of having a 2-hour drive whilst in labour with contractions going up the A96.
My biggest fear would be that it would be incredibly quick and I would be without any medical assistance, just with my husband in a car on a snowy, potentially, road. And yeah, that's terrifying.
Health bosses say they're making every possible effort to make sure staff are in place for next year, and they insist that safety precautions have been taken.
The community midwives have been absolutely key in this. They've been meeting all the mums who are due to give birth in the next 6 weeks. And then the antenatal process will book all the women with a slightly higher risk to go to Aberdeen. So in that way there's a much stronger safety element, and we hope that that will never happen.
Protests have been held over NHS Grampian's plans, like this one in Elgin at the weekend, when over 12,000 people have signed a petition calling for a stop to the downgrading of maternity services.
They haven't put a contingency plan in place. That's hugely concerning and raises questions about mismanagement and confidence in the people at NHS Grampian and how they can put in place a firm plan so that we can feel reassured that the consultant-led service will come back to Dr Gray's and it won't just be the start of a slippery slope to us losing these services completely in Murray.
This hospital in Elgin celebrates its 200th anniversary next year, and it's clear from local people that there's real passion about protecting local services. Despite the reassurances from NHS Grampian, the suspicion remains that once maternity services are downgraded, they might not come back. And campaigners will be seeking more clarity at a series of public meetings next week. Andrew Thompson, Reporting Scotland, Elgin.
It's 17 minutes to 7. A reminder of tonight's main story. The SNP calls for a delay to the UK leaving the European Union as Boris Johnson attacks the Prime Minister's Brexit strategy. And still to come, the Open Championship gets underway at Carnoustie tomorrow, but the club raises concerns that it might be too small to host one of the world's biggest sporting events. Help is being offered to people with private water supplies whose springs and wells are drying up because of the warm weather. Around 4% of the population in Scotland get their water off mains. Our environment correspondent Kevin Keane reports.
It might look a lot, but this burn is running at a fraction of its normal rate for this time of year. It feeds a spring which farmer Sandy Tulloch relies on for water for his home and business. This overflow pipe from the well is normally flowing out. Today it's just a trickle, and so the whole family is having to modify what they use.
The dishwasher is on every second day on an EcoCycle, which is 10 litres. The washing machine is on second, third day. And you just have to be very, very careful because that's all there is coming in.
He thinks it'll be less than a week before the well runs dry and is already looking at alternatives.
So you must be doing daily rain dances, are you?
Well, I'm too old to dance, but I can speak to the gods. You know.
They abstract water directly out to the river, into our wells, which is this arrangement here, and then these pipes.
Huge efforts are underway to keep main supplies topped up. Because it's relatively flat, Moray in particular relies on rivers rather than reservoirs to feed our homes. River levels here on the Spey have been dropping consistently for weeks now, and so these pipes have been set up to draw extra water from it. At the moment they're capable of extracting an extra 200 litres of water every second. But for those with private supplies, the solutions would have to be much more localised.
There are a few options that we can do there depending on where they're located and the size of the supply that they would have. Whether that would be simply providing them with bottled water directly to them, or we can set up bowsers at their properties, give them tanks of water.
In Moray, the Finance Secretary has been seeing the work to keep the water flowing, and he says funds are being made available for local authorities to coordinate alternatives.
What it means if the water supply was running dry, that they'll continue to have water supplies. That's good for public health and of course for ensuring that the whole country is protected through this period, this dry spell that we are enduring at the moment.
It was 1954 when the River Spey was last this low. With no immediate prospect of the weather changing, the message to us all is to use water wisely. Kevin Keane reporting, Scotland, Fochabers.
Strike action at Aberdeen Airport later this week has been called off. Members of the Unite Union have accepted a new pay offer. The first of 3 24-hour stoppages was due to take place on Friday. It's likely the airport would have had to close if the strike had gone ahead. Efforts to refloat a cargo ship that ran aground off the Caithness coast have proved unsuccessful and will resume tomorrow. The Dutch-registered Priscilla hit the Pentland Skerries in the early hours of this morning. The 90-metre-long vessel is said to be undamaged and its crew of 6 remain on board. People in Scotland watch more television than viewers in other parts of the UK. That's according to Ofcom, which says we spent on average 3 hours and 46 minutes a day in front of our sets last year. However, the watchdog says there's been a steady decline since 2010, with young audiences in particular preferring online viewing and streaming services. Katie Hunter reports.
Transfixed by TV. Thomas, Sophie and Max all have their favourite programmes.
I like watching sport. I like watching kids' TV shows. I like watching tennis and football.
But viewing habits are changing. Children aged 4 to 15 watched 41% less broadcast TV last year compared to 2010. For 16 to 34-year-olds, there's been a drop of 34%. Overall, the decline is 16%. Viewers are moving away from traditional television.
They are using their TV sets to do other things, particularly watching streaming services like Amazon or Netflix, or using it for gaming purposes. The other element to it is the sort of age profile of the change as well. So the decline is driven predominantly by younger viewers.
Hey people, we are in Glencoe today. I'm with Beauty Creep, Erin, another Scottish YouTuber.
Gavin Bell films himself travelling across Scotland. Last year his videos were viewed more than 2 million times. He isn't surprised young people are moving online.
If you look at how we're being raised now, everything's online. Everything that we want to consume is at our fingertips on our phone. All we have to do is go to Google, go to YouTube, just search for what that piece of content is that we want to watch at that time. And so it's alien to think that we're going to sit down for an evening or have to sit down at a specific time to watch a piece of content on TV.
Which gives bosses at the BBC something to think about. They're launching a new Scottish television channel next year. People in this Glasgow iCafe say all traditional broadcasters need to improve.
We often say when we're looking at the television how much stuff on the television we do not want to watch.
They're able to binge watch seasons and stuff like that. That's really pulling people away from like scheduled programming.
It is a lot better platform to watch online than watch on a TV.
This was the most watched TV programme in Scotland last year. Almost 1.2 million people tuned into the final of Strictly Come Dancing.
It's Joe and Katya!
Big hits still attract big audiences, but attracting a younger audience remains the aim for Scotland's broadcasters. Katie Hunter, reporting Scotland.
Now, football, and Celtic face the Armenian champions Alashkert in their Champions League first-round qualifier at Celtic Park tonight. The team leads 3-0 in aggregate after the away leg. Last night, Rangers, playing in white, did enough to progress to the next round of Europa League qualifying. Final score was 0-0 against the Macedonian side FK Skopje. Alan McGregor had this save late in the game. Rangers won the first leg 2-0. And Carnoustie will host Golf's Open Championship for the 8th time, with play getting underway early tomorrow morning. Our reporter Jane Lewis is already there at the Angus course. Good evening, Jane.
Good evening to you, Jackie. Yes, this course, famous links course, is gearing up to host the 147th Open Championship. And many of the world's leading golfers see this course as the ultimate test in links golf. In the past, it's been dubbed Carnoustie. Such are the tough playing conditions. So how are the world's best golfers going to cope with the conditions when play does get underway tomorrow? And what about the locals living and working here in Carnoustie? How are they feeling about the golfing invasion? The crowds were out on final practice day, enjoying a preview of what's to come, with some having travelled far.
How you doing? How are you? We're from Washington State. He's from South Carolina, Florida. We're all brothers.
But the atmosphere on the course in stark contrast to the golfing town.
I think it's quite a shame like, not allowing people to come out and actually see the town of Carnoustie. I mean, a lot of people actually love the town and said that we've actually got a friendly town, but again, they're getting kept all down there and then just shipped off home to their hotels and stuff.
I think overall it's beneficial for the area, it showcases the area, and I'm sure we could put up with the restrictions for 3 or 4 days.
But the famous championship course is all set, as the big names get in some last-minute practice, with some viewing this course as the trickiest there is. At 7,402 yards, this is the longest course on the Open Rota. And of course, its rough comes with quite a reputation. But given the warm weather we've been having recently, things are looking rather sunbaked. So does that mean this perilous course has been tamed?
It's a bit of a learning experience for us too, you know, trying to produce a course when it's as dry as this. But we're real happy with how it's looking so far. It's going to be firm and fiery, I would say. But it's going to be a good test for the golfers too.
And that test might come here at the 18th, regarded by many as the toughest finish in championship golf, with its bunkers running up the right-hand side of the fairway, and that, the Barry Burn crossing in front of the green. It's seen many a drama.
Now, what are you doing?
Jean Van de Velde's misery in 1999 led to delight for Paul Lawrie. Despite missing from the field this year, 5 Scots will compete, including this former champion, who'll hit the first ball of this Open.
At least it won't be one of hitting a drive into a narrow fairway. It'll be hitting probably about a 5-iron off the tee, so that's not a big sweat hitting the 5-iron off the tee for position.
So Lyle relishing the first tee, it's almost Open time. So yes, the action all getting underway tomorrow then, as we heard there from Sandy Lyle. He will hit the very first ball of this 147th Open Championship. He, of course, the past champion in 1985. You'll have to set your alarm clocks early, though, to catch that one. 6:35 in the morning he tees off. But there'll be plenty of action throughout the day, and I'll be back reporting live in Reporting Scotland and bringing you updates on everything that's happening here at the lunchtime programme and also at 6:30 as well. Jackie.
Thank you very much, Jane. What is the weather going to be fair for Carnoustie, Causer?
Well, indeed, at least for the first day, plenty of sunshine in store, Jackie. Good evening to you all. Well, today wasn't bad at all either. We had plenty in the way of cloud around, but some decent breaks to allow some sunshine through too, and also a scattering of showers. Now, here's a recent radar satellite image. You can see that line of showers spreading across the south of the country, with one or two edging up towards Edinburgh as well. The central swathe, though, largely dry, some decent spells of sunshine, and we had some showers too across parts of the northwest. Now, where we have these showers, they will continue for a time this evening before they fade away and it becomes largely dry with some clear skies, especially for the south and east, more in the way of cloud building across the northwest. And with those light winds, there's a chance of some patches of mist and fog forming overnight by dawn, and temperatures tonight dipping to around 9 to 11 Celsius, perhaps a little cooler for more rural areas. But it does mean for tomorrow a fine dry start, plenty of sunshine, especially further towards the south and east for Carnoustie as well. More in the way of cloud, though, building across the northwest by the afternoon, marking a change to come. So if you're heading out around 4 o'clock in the afternoon, it'll be dry, it'll be fine, plenty of sunshine across the south of the country, across the central belt as well. Temperatures climbing up to the low 20s here. Further towards the northeast too, fine, dry, plenty of sun. Across the northwest though, north of the Great Glen, more in the way of cloud. And we're starting to see some rain edging across the Western Isles and northwestern coastal areas. But it should remain dry for the afternoon across the Northern Isles. Now, this rain will start to move south and eastwards as we head through to the evening. It's associated with a weather front that's arriving from the northwest. It'll bring some outbreaks of rain, some moderate bursts overnight on Thursday to start Friday. Maybe 10 to 15 millimetres of rainfall falling in some spots. But welcome news for those with gardens and farms where you're hoping for some rain. So a fairly wet night. But by the time we reach Friday, that rain will eventually clear south and eastwards, and we're left with largely cloudy, grey conditions for a time, maybe some patchy light rain and drizzle in a few spots. The best chance of any brightness further towards the north. That's your forecast.
Thank you, Kozo. And now a reminder of tonight's main news. The SNP has called for the date for Britain's exit from the EU to be delayed amid continuing divisions within the Conservative Party. This afternoon, the former Foreign Secretary, Boris Johnson, attacked the Prime Minister's Brexit proposals in his resignation speech. And that's Reporting Scotland. I'm back with the late bulletin at 10:30. Join me for that if you can. Until then, from all the team, have a good evening. Bye-bye.